So I think what we'll do today, since we're getting started a little late, we'll have a little longer practice session, and in relation to that, a little shorter reflection period. So been kind of thinking about these four thoughts that turn the mind toward the Dharma, and of course, again and again and again, as we begin every practice, calling them to our mind and our heart. And then with joy, devotion, contentment with all of our freedoms and circumstances that are so favorable, with really vast bodhicitta and purity perception and that motivation, we begin our practice. And so we've gone over, of course, many times in the past, reflecting on this precious human birth with all the freedoms and favorable conditions. We also, I think, one of the more previous times, reflected a little bit on impermanence. So then I was thinking to just reflect again about karma, right? The results of virtuous and unvirtuous actions, which are causes, are inexorable. This very profound teaching from the beginning that the great kindness teacher Buddha Shakyamuni gave us, so encompassing and so fundamental, right? Even we say every day, everything that proceeds for everything that proceeds from a cause, the Tathagata has explained the cause, and likewise the cessation. This is the doctrine of the great sage, of the great ascetic, of this great kindness teacher, the Buddha, who pointed out the truth of interdependence. So these Four Noble Truths from the very beginning are really teachings on karma. And what is karma, right? Is action. I think sometimes, maybe for we fortunate ones who've been exposed to the teachings, when we hear the word karma, we know it's not only, karma isn't just what happens to us, but we also have a play in how we react to some degree, and even more so, based on how we react, we have some play in propelling karma. So this law of cause and effect, the natural law of cause and effect that the Buddha pointed out in these very first turning teachings that only deepen through the second turning, the third turning, and as the obscurations are released, as bodhicitta is increased, as wisdom increases, interdependence and relative truth becomes pure and vibrant, nothing but enlightened. But in the meantime, for we little ones, the Buddha gave these kind teachings on pointing out, like these real fundamental teachings, like we have this Four Noble Truths, right? This suffering. The second Noble Truth, there's cause for suffering. The third Noble Truth, there's such a thing as the cessation or the end of suffering, freedom from suffering. And there's the path to realizing that freedom. So these are all nothing but teachings on cause and result. Causes and conditions bring result. Right? So the first two are focusing more on samsara, on suffering. The second two truths are based on freedom from suffering and the conditions and causes we can engage that bring us that help us to investigate our true nature and create conditions that are more attuned and more helpful for us to absolutely have more and more direct perception of that true nature. So, karma means action. All of our actions have their results. The cause of suffering, the cause of each one of us, of our samsaras, for all the infinite sentient beings is, of course, as we know, the fundamental ignorance of knowing the true nature, the true openness, the inconceivable great emptiness nature of everything that arises. And that very, very deep, deep down, our samsara arises from not recognizing, from that fundamental ignorance. And based on that, from deep, deep, subtle, profound hope and fear, aversion and attachment, we wave this great spell of samsara, of this interdependent web of confusion that we have. And the Buddha, of course, he taught that even emptiness, at least intellectually, can be comprehended pretty easily. But the Buddha taught karma, the law of cause and effect. To truly understand it, one has to be omniscient. One has to be fully enlightened. But there's basic things we can understand karma, which is what, again, if we always remember, is one, it's inevitable. Every single experience that we're having, every perception we're having, the experience of our current body and the emotions we have, the way we read things, the choices we make to do or not do things, all of that is nothing but karma. So it's a really interesting play of what appears to be our choices, but it's all, again, fabricated, because like the Buddha pointed out, we have this sense of I, but if we look at everything what makes up this I, such as the teachings on the aggregates, these groupings of different classes of our gross and subtle experience that makes up our self, when we go to look, we can't find that, right? So this basic ignorance and the actions we do causes our samsara. So I'm going to kind of go over things, skim over things, because I think it's really important we practice. And then next week, we'll go a little bit more in depth into some of these details. So while we have all of these sense of self in all of our experiences and everything we've done, its effects are with us now. So along with, all the teachings the Buddha gave on, such as the 5 aggregates, he also gave teachings on, the 18 dhatus, or, which is essentially other ways we frame our sense of self and our experience, right? There's our consciousness and all of our sense consciousnesses inside, and then there's the objects of those consciousnesses, all the sights, all the sounds, all the smells, all the tastes, all the sensations, all the mental perceptions we have are the objects of our our mental consciousness, of our eye consciousness, of our ear consciousness, of our nose consciousness, of our tongue consciousness, of our body consciousness. And the habitual patterns, again, that help kind of connect those two realms are then these organs, right? There's our eyes, the eye organ, the ear organ, the nose organ, the tongue organ, the body organ, the mental organ, which is the brain. That's the, right, all the senses are going there, all the consciousness are perceiving through them. They're objects, subject and objects. These are all habitual patterns. And what we're doing in our practice, right, is we're breaking down our habitual patterns, which is to say we're increasing our wisdom. The other thing, again, we say every day, right, from everything that proceeds from a cause, the Tathagata has explained the cause, and likewise the cessation, these Four Noble Truths. And then, so those are the truths. These are kind of the views, but how do we actualize that? Along with our joy, appreciation, our bodhicitta, our trust, we actualize that through this basic thing that sums up all of our practices. Avoid harmful, unvirtuous actions. Engage in positive, helpful, balancing, virtuous activities. Tame our own mind. So on that rough edge of things, become more and more aware of what's helpful and what's harmful. Try not to engage with what's harmful. Let go. Engage more with what's helpful. And then, of course, with that, the practice of increasing our wisdom. More and more directly perceiving, what's both on the level of that relative level, what's helpful, but also having more and more insight into the empty nature of ourself, of the world, but direct and full of, again, the qualities not only of that wisdom, but inseparable from that, love, compassion. So all of our bodhicitta practices. And so, along with these other teachings, fundamental teachings, such as the 5 aggregates, the 18 sense fields, or what we call them, or 18 dhatus. There's the 12 nidanas, which again are kind of specifically how the Buddha taught a way we can look at the kind of the mechanics of how karma happens. So again, we'll go over that more next week, but I'm sure you've heard of these 12 links of interdependent origination, or tendril, the way the Buddha taught, the way the whole web and weave of, our whole perception of self and other and action, every moment, every day, every month, every year, every life, from beginningless time, this infinite disguise that's called samsara happens. And so again, that's basically these 12 links we've heard. So maybe we can go through them. Whether or not, it's good to remember these things, but don't worry about remembering it now. Because again, maybe next week I'll try to send everyone something we can look at visually, because I know that helps me too. So the links essentially, right, are showing this web, how everything, the interdependent works, and how the cycles of karma happen, whether it's every moment or lifetime to lifetime. It kind of can be applied to all those stages of how karma happens. Again, for sentient beings, this is what we're talking about, samsara, being caught in this web, in the wheel of life, like we see in the monasteries. That shows from the basic ignorance, hatred, and attachment, all the 6 realms arise through this interdependent co-origination. And what's there? This huge monster, which is essentially the great emptiness. So, right, it's said even at the time of death, most every being is introduced to their true, open, brilliant nature and is terrified and goes looking for shelter. That's kind of what that, I think in one way, what that big old monster is pointing out. So this wheel of interdependence begins ignorance, the fundamental not knowing of how things are. This is the real ground that allows all of our samsara to function. Based in the seed in that ground is then this second link, which is called the karmic formations or karmic seeds. That means all of our past actions, all of the past actions from our previous moments, all of our habitual patterns that are stored in our alaya, in our way, in the ground of our ignorance. These seeds are there in the ground of our ignorance, these habitual patterns. And then, so those karmic seeds in the ground of our ignorance, they're going to just naturally give rise to consciousness in our habitual patterns. So then consciousness is the third link. Then it goes on through name and form, kind of the conditions that our consciousness needs to begin to be embodied. Within that embodiment, then the 6 senses, the habitual pattern of our 6 senses begin to engage. And then they, again, are the habitual patterns of our 6 senses are not only the physical organs and the consciousnesses, but they're objects as well. So once that is happening, then we have the next stage, which is called contact, when our consciousness meets through our senses, meets the objects of our senses. They're all, that circuit's flowing. And then the habitual patterns of how we feel, our feelings about it happen. And then there's the next thing, is do we want more of it or less of it, So that craving and then grasping. And then there's the 10th link, which is called becoming. And then 11th, birth. And then the 12th, old age and death. And then again, or decay and death. And then the cycle's complete. So that's a lot of details. Ignorance, karmic seeds, bring forth consciousness. And within that is the name and form, the 6 senses engaging, contact, feeling, craving, grasping, becoming, or birth. Birth, old age, and death. So that cycle is perpetually happening. And right, we can see within that are, again, looking at cause and effect. So these first, and also there's our sense too, right? In every moment we have the illusion of past present, future. So in a way, these, like Pema Rinpoche explains, these first two links, ignorance and karmic seeds, in a way that's like what our present, that's the past of our present moment. Or even we could say our present life. Present life, present moment. The past of our present moment is what can be called here ignorance and karmic seeds. And our present moment is then the next, like 5 or so links. All of our experience of our consciousness and our sense fields being active with subject, object, how we feel, how we engage, all of that, what we choose to do and what we choose not to do, how we feel about it, all that happens within the present moment. So consciousness, name, form, 6 senses, contact, feeling, craving, grasping, becoming, those are all within these 12 links what we can consider the present moment. And of course they're links, but this is all like instantaneous to our perception. And then again, on the bigger scale, it could be called this present life as well. And then the future is going to be the result, right, of the way we engage with the present moment, what that gives birth to, how that exists, how that, again, everything that is, comprised of parts and conditioned is bound to die, is impermanent. So then when that ceases to be, decays, dies, disappears, falls apart, that's for the future. So there's past, present, future in the sense of karma too. Within our present moment, we really don't, again, all of our present moment is circumstantial. There's really nothing we can do about it. It's totally based on our habitual patterns, our actions, and our ignorance that's been, perpetuated. And thankfully, we have such good fortune, right? We have some connection with the true nature in these great wisdom teachings, which is equally part of our karma. Karma is not just bad. Knowing about it is important. Like not knowing the Four Noble Truths. That's that's ignorance. We have been introduced to these by this great kindness teacher. So within this present moment, the results, right, of our, the results are our consciousness and our whole experience. So that goes up to, within these 12 links again, consciousness, name and form, our sense fields activated, the habitual patterns on the level of how we feel, associate, value, either have fear or want or needs, hopes or fears towards our experiences, how we engage with them. All of that is kind of the results, is the effect of our past. We don't have a lot to do with it. But then what makes all the difference now is with more mindfulness, with more openness, with more awareness of the inevitability of that negative actions based on negative emotions bring unfavorable results, and actions based on virtuous, meaning kindness, natural qualities, bring forth more favorable results, especially with wisdom, with bodhicitta, right? So then, what we refrain from doing, what we engage with doing, this is what makes the difference for the future, right? These are the causes. We're creating then the causes in the present moment. This is the aspect of the present moment that we're bringing forth inevitable future events, future experiences. So, how we feel about something, then what we actually do or don't do is what then pushes forth future karma to manifest and become a present moment. Right? So, of course, the path of Dharma is one of ever increasing our wisdom, taming our own mind, knowing our own mind. And along with that path is this aspect of refraining from harm, engaging in benefit. So then in regards with this teachings of the 12 links, right? Another, where that first link, the more we examine our own egolessness, have not only intellectual understanding, but more and more direct perception of emptiness of self, and then emptiness of other, direct perception into the great openness. That we're increasing our wisdom. And then again, that brings more freedom and more openness, more flexibility maybe, at least in our view, within our present experience. Within that present experience, as we're more and more aware of our habitual patterns, and more aware of what's helpful and what's not helpful, then we can really choose and have more control over refraining from harm, and even better, engaging in benefit. And so that's again in this that link between our present moment, how we engage between feeling and then how we feel about it and engage with it. It brings upon, just without a doubt, future experiences. And of course in the teachings, when we plant a seed, the seed in the right conditions brings many, many fruits. Right? And so there's that. So another way of looking at that, right? We're increasing our wisdom. And this point too, within the wheel of interdependent of karma happening and the inevitability of karma, is both, again, with the view that harmful negative emotions and actions based on negative emotions and bring forth negative experiences, more confusion, actions based on more wisdom and natural qualities of love and compassion and wisdom, those bring forth more and more positive experiences, helpful experiences. That's called merit. So within our whole path of these two wings of our practice, right, are accumulating merit and wisdom. Here, merit, it's not just like a badge we're putting on for being a good boy or a good girl. This is means we're truly acting in a natural way. We're truly activating our bodhicitta with less grasping, upturning our own samsara by activating the 6 paramitas based on truly boundless, sincere, 4 boundless aspirations. That brings upon, more positive qualities. So we're that's accumulating merit, which again, within the law of cause and effect, that's what we're doing here with this link, with our present moment, engaging in benefit. And again then, from the view of the enlightened ones, of our great kindness teachers and guides, who've given us all these tools, given us this Ngondro practice itself, as well as a whole 9 yanas to explore and engage and attain fulfillment, mature our own minds, and then be of true benefit and refuge and sources of peace for the infinite beings of samsara. We have this great tendril. So again, from the enlightened perspective, everything is empty, everything is open. And yet even the enlightened ones are working with karma in the sense of our favor. They're not slaves to karma. They're not caught up in the nets of illusion and obscurations and emotional and knowledge obscurations. They're totally liberated from those. And yet interdependence always works. There's relative truth, there's absolute truth. And we can't, while they are in union, when we truly perceive the truth of that, they are in union, but we shouldn't confuse them while we're still young ones, you know. So like Guru Rinpoche said, my view is as vast as space, and yet my attention to the law of cause and effect is as fine as flower. That's how these great ones can give us these teachings, these skillful means practices of the Vajrayana, which through interdependence is working with our own samsara to undo the nets of our samsara and reveal the pure relative truth display of our Buddha nature, right? Bring out that beautiful, bounteous bodhicitta for our being, for our own self. So keeping our emptiness awareness along with our bodhicitta, true bodhicitta motivation is so critical. And now I said I wasn't going to talk for long, but I did. So maybe we'll leave it there. Forgive me if I'm forgotten some big thing, or if you're all there scratching your heads. But, you know, we'll kind of revisit some of these things next week. And if anyone has any questions, you know, please write in, and maybe specifically about some of these things. I wish we were all here in the same room to kind of talk in real time, but we're not. But we have this wonderful opportunity to be together this way. So thank you. And now we'll work on again using this favorable moment to accumulate our merit, our wisdom, and know it's inevitable. You know, as much as we can be truly frightened by seeing like the inevitability of our past actions, but just that is purifying, right? On every level of the Ngondro practice, we can see how we're working to free up the nets of our samsara, to bring more peace for all beings, ourselves and others. So recognizing a mistake for a mistake is purification, and we have these beautiful, skillful means. And equally, so when we say this in the Four Thoughts, the results of virtuous and unvirtuous actions are inexorable. We can both connect with, just for ourselves and for others, seeing how when we're acting with ignorance and the 5 poisons engaged in grasping, it's, if anything, boring, but even more so kind of terrifying and scary, right? But again, that's why we need to really keep our practice and not get really looking for our own mind, what we're experiencing, and mingling our mind with the great enlightened ones, with Guru Rinpoche, inseparable from our root teacher. And that the effects of that are inevitable. When we truly connect with the Dharma, hear the Dharma, contemplate the Dharma, bring it into our heart, don't shirk away from the shadowy places or the harmful places, but let them be part of our bodhicitta practice. Embrace everything according to our abilities, you know. Inevitably, we're turning everything to the path. You know, bless my mind to turn toward the Dharma. Bless my Dharma path. To bless my bless my mind to turn towards the Dharma. No, I'm totally spacing out. Bless my mind to turn towards the Dharma. Bless my Dharma practice to follow the path. Bless my path to be free of delusion. Bless me that all delusion be transformed into wisdom. I mean, this is inevitable when we're really embracing everything with our practice. So, yeah, contemplating these four thoughts, both as we set out, but also while we're, from moment to moment, as we're doing our practice and in our day, helps us check in with our motivation, right? Because it's motivation that makes karma more or less strong. That's definitely really vital in the Buddhist teachings. How we feel about what we're going to do, how we feel while we're doing it, how we feel if we completed it, makes the karma stronger. If we have really strong feelings and good feelings about it. So anyway, I'll stop here. Thank you. And we'll just take a few moments to just rest in silence. Recenter. Recite the 7-line prayer, lineage prayers, and we'll go to our Ngondro practice.